Yeah, and Michael Steele talked about that a lot in the A block, right? Then the first segment about the idea that loyalists are going to be installed that are just going to tell him yes no matter what. You write about Trump's desire to, quote, get rid of the judges in your book, and you describe a top aide, Stephen Miller, of course it's Stephen Miller, replying, yes, sir, a country without judges would help. I mean, how alarmed were you when you heard this exchange, Miles? And frankly, if Trump continues to stack the benches with his kind of judges, why would he even bother getting rid of them?
Well, exactly, Katie. And this is the perfect example of why I think it's important to talk about the history of the Trump administration, but as it relates to the future. An exchange like that I witnessed firsthand between the president, Stephen Miller, and other officials gets us into Trump's mindset about what he wants to do in a second term, which is he saw the judiciary not as a co-equal branch of government. He saw it as an extraordinary nuisance and one that he wanted to find any way to get rid of. And there were actual discussions about sending legislation to Capitol Hill to do what's called judicial gerrymandering, to get rid of certain appellate courts that were problematic. In fact, right now I'm in the state of California, where Donald Trump's most annoying court, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, was one that he actually wanted to get rid of. And so he ordered Stephen Miller and other officials to draft legislation. Well, if you think that Republicans thought that was crazy, you would be wrong, because what actually happened is several Republicans did get excited about the idea. Now, it didn't take off, but I feel very confident that if there was a MAGA majority in the House and Senate, and we had Trump return, that they would do judicial gerrymandering. They would get rid of courts that tend to rule against them. But even worse than that, Katie, were discussions around simply ignoring the courts altogether. And you know, you're a lawyer and I'm not, that were the president of the United States to ignore the courts, it creates a constitutional crisis, because our court system doesn't have some independent police force to go enforce its decisions. It relies upon public officials acting honorably and obeying those courts. And if Donald Trump oversees law enforcement and federal authorities that would try to enforce his orders, well, then you're in a constitutional crisis. And I do worry about, in a second administration, them not only gerrymandering the courts, but deliberately ignoring orders that they don't agree with.
We're already having the